In this video for Gnandad's Grad Adventure, we're going to be focusing on rounds 16, 18, and 25. Now, I've already done round 13 where we slipped some stitches so that we can get to the other rounds faster, but rounds 13 and 16 aren't almost identical. It's just that the placement of these little bits of slipped yarn are going to be offset. So that's the only difference. So round 13 and round 16 are both rounds where no stitches are knit whatsoever. So you won't actually be knitting, you'll simply be taking your contrast color here, which in this case is color 1. And for round 16, you'll slip 1 with the yarn and back, and always slip purlwise unless told otherwise. Then you'll move the yarn to the front and slip this one like that. And then from now on, it's a slip 3, but it's written as slip 2. And then the repeat starts again with a slip 1. So you'll slip 1 with the yarn in front and 1 with the yarn and 3 with the yarn in back. If you are an English or throwing knitter, you will have to bring the yarn to the front like this, slip the stitch, and then bring it back, and then slip the next 3 stitches. So that's all we're doing in rounds 13 and 16. We're doing slipped stitches entirely. We're knitting nothing, and we're just creating these bands of contrasting color here against the background. All of the rounds where we're going to be working here in this faux embroidery section are sort of a color work where we'll be slipping stitches. And slipping stitches can be tricky because when we slip a stitch, the yarn traveling behind, if it is too short, it can cause the fabric in front of it to buckle. So if this float here isn't long enough to let these 3 stitches stretch out to their natural thing, if it is instead sort of too tight, then this will buckle in and be too tight. And then sections where it is right will be bigger, and it will sort of create a lumpy fabric. So at all times when we're slipping yarn in this section, we want to be very cognizant of how the fabric feels. All right, so you want the floats to feel as long and as stretchy as the stitches when they stretch out. So every now and then with this, just remember to stretch things out and make sure that it feels right. With particularly the first 2 rows, you've got a lot of free play here because you're not knitting the stitches at all. You're not locking it in. So there's a lot of chance for you to go all the way around and then actually pull it back, pull it back, pull it back, and fix it. Floats are especially tricky when you're going around a needle join, whether you're doing magic loop or DPNs. This bit here gets tricky because if I now want to go over here, you can see that the float wants to cut corners. In magic loop, it would look more like this, and it would cut corner like that. So it's really important when working the corners that you trap the float with your finger. So in this case, I'll slip 1 with the yarn and back, and now when I go to slip this one and work it, for the next little while, I'm going to keep my finger against this float, pulling it into the fabric and making sure that it bends around the corner rather than cutting across the corner. So I'll work a few stitches, slip, 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 do that. Right now I'm holding it with this finger. All right, so now I'm on round 18. Round 17 was just to knit all, so that we've got 1 round of space between our slipped float here and then where we're going to be working our next bit. So round 18 is a nice simple one. We're going to just be knitting 3 and then slipping 1. And now that we're knitting and slipping, we need to be extra cognizant of whether our floats are stretchy enough. So make sure that you are stretching it out on the right hand needle as you go to work the next knit stitch. What we are doing is we are setting up a column of slipped stitches for Gnandad's embroidery that is going to be in line with this first slipped float area here. So from this first round, you'll have a little slipped bar here, bar of contrast color, and then right above it, you'll have the slipped stitch column. The effect of what we're doing is to make it look as though we've worked color work, like sort of a stranded color work effect without actually doing that. And then it also will occasionally will throw in some more of these slipped bits with the yarn in front so that we can just throw in a few little dashes across the fabric. If you've seen Nana's visit, that similarity between this stitch and what we did with her is on purpose. I'm trying to make it look like the same person made their festive clothes, the same person, or the same gnome to be specific, you know, sort of like the two of them were working on their clothes together when they were planning their festive outfits. So every row that we work, we're going to kind of work it in the opposite with the next color. So for every round 18, we're going to have a round 19. So we're going to kind of mirror it. And that maybe doesn't make as much sense. For every round where we're knitting stitches in color 1 and slipping the color 2 stitches, we're going to mirror that to get the tension to redistribute. So now I'm going to use color 2, and what I will do now is I will slip 3 with yarn and back. So again, really making sure that my floats are long enough, and then I will knit that stitch. So each of these 4 stitches has now been slipped once and knit once. When you go to count rows in this section, it will get a little odd because we're working these twice and numbering them twice in the instructions, but they're actually going to sort of show up as a single round or row in our knitting. So again, when we have longer floats, we need to make sure that these are long enough. So always just be sort of stretching them out before you lock things in. Here I am ready to work round 25. And what I'm going to be doing is alternating slipping this stitch, this second stitch in our repeat, with the color 1 or color 2 in front, and knitting the stitch of color 2. So I'll always be slipping stitches 1 and 3 with the yarn in back. So slip it with the yarn in back. Now here I'll bring it to the front and slip this stitch. Then I will slip this one. So I've slipped all 3 of these, but one of them I've slipped with the yarn in front to bring that color across, and now I will knit this one. So slip back, slip front, slip back, knit 1. Slip back, slip front, slip back, knit 1. So this is what we're doing here in round 25. When we are working slipped stitches, the danger is that the floats floating behind and also in front are shorter than the stitches that they are working around, and that the fabric will become inflexible and even pucker and not look great. So there's a couple things we've done in this pattern to change that. One of them is that we've switched up needle sizes. So we've got this slipped stitch section happening on a thicker needle. One of the things you can do is to knit inside out, which is a really simple way of making the circle work for you. So I use this green garter bit as our demonstration. So the outside of the circle is a much bigger line, longer line than the inside of a circle. So if floats were traveling around the outside, they would just, by virtue of the fabric, travel farther than they would for 3 stitches here, 3 stitches here. There's no way to cut a corner the way that you can in a circle. You can't cut that on the outside of the circle. So all you're going to do is you're going to push this piece inside out. And if you do it right at the very beginning when we don't have as much fabric, you may find that everything's trying to roll in and curl up and come back through your needles. So just get a hair clip and clip them together, or use removable stitch markers and just kind of clip along here and keep that from popping up. It's actually remarkably simple. The only thing is that rather than working sort of at the front needle, you're going to be working at the back needle. So in a DPN situation, it will look like this. In Magic Loop, you would have your stitches on the needle and the stitches on the cord on this front half, but you'd be ignoring them because you always ignore the stitches on the cord. And so you still see the front of the fabric. You're still working on the right side of the fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my color here, and I will and if you're a DPN user, you'll usually want to switch which one's over under. Usually we like to have one of them over and one of them under. And when I'm working in the round inside out, I sort of switch that up a little bit. So I've got my stitch above here, or my tip above here. And so I'm going to simply work the round exactly as I would. I'm slipping, then I'm knitting, slipping, knitting. And the floats are being forced to travel around the outside of the circle, and they can't cut inside the here. And so they are, just by virtue of where they are, going to be a little longer.